Hi, I'm Trisha. Welcome to Dinner with the Doctor, March 2025. Today we're going to be making a Greek style meal. We're going to start with making a lentil stew. So first of all, I have already soaked 1 cup of lentils because soaking them requires less cooking time. So I just put them in some cold water throughout the day and let them soak. However, the recipe doesn't say to do that. So you can always do that if you are short on time like me. The other thing I do if I'm short on time is I don't saute my vegetables like the recipe says. So I'm just going to add them all to the pot. But the recipe says to saute 1 onion, a carrot, and celery until it's aromatic and some olive oil. And when the onion's becoming translucent, then you add in your spices. I'm just going to add it all to the pot. So here we go. 1 onion, and then my carrot, 1 stalk of celery, a cup of potato, a quart of water. Now here are my spices. First of all, it says 2 tablespoons of pasta sauce. Now, if you don't have pasta sauce already open and on hand, I would recommend maybe just using some tomato paste and adding in some Italian seasoning. I had some pizza sauce that was already open, so I'm just using that. But go ahead and use pasta sauce if you have plans for it otherwise. And then I have a tablespoon of minced garlic, 1 teaspoon of oregano, half a teaspoon of rosemary, 1/4 teaspoon of white ground pepper, which is optional, half a teaspoon of sea salt, and 2 bay leaves. I'm going to stir it all together and then we're going to cook it. Usually soaked lentils take around 20-25 minutes. If the lentils aren't pre-soaked, probably up to like 45 minutes. I'm hungry, so I'm glad that I pre-soaked these lentils and I can get eating sooner. All right, my stew is cooking and it smells amazing, so I'm gonna make my hummus. The recipe says to use dried chickpeas soaked overnight, but I didn't do that. So I have canned chickpeas, and I did a little Googling and it says about 3/4 cup of dried chickpeas is about 1 can. So I'm gonna use 1.5 cans of canned chickpeas. And then instead of chopping my garlic, I use 3 cloves, just putting them in there. I know my blender can handle it. Also, instead of tahini, I've made hummus before with just using sesame seeds. Sesame seeds ground up is tahini. So I know this is gonna grind it up. I'm gonna use 1/4 cup of those. It calls for 3/4 cup of tahini, so probably a little less, but I don't like my hummus too tahini-y. So I'm gonna just do that much. And then I'm gonna use a teaspoon of cumin. And since I'm using canned chickpeas, I'm gonna go with about 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. If I was using soaked chickpeas, I would probably use 1/2 teaspoon, just a guess. You can always add more, but you can't take away. And then 6 tablespoons of lemon juice, freshly squeezed. And then the water is kind of a range. So it says to use 6 to 10 tablespoons. So I'm just gonna use like half-ish for now. And then I'm gonna blend it up and we're gonna see how it goes. All right, the hummus turned out great, nice and thick, creamy. Let's give it a taste test. You can always add more stuff. I might add a little bit more salt, maybe even a little bit of actual tahini, but whatever you think tastes good, just add that and serve it up with some veggies, some pita chips, or some pita bread. Be delicious with this Greek style meal. Now it's time to make our Tabouli salad. I have 3 cups approximately of chopped curly parsley. I just used 1 bunch. And I'm going to add 2/3 cup of cooked bulgur wheat. So I cooked up a bunch because it freezes really well after it's cooked. And I'm just gonna use 2/3 cup. 2 green onions. 1 cup of English cucumber. 1/3 cup of chopped mint, and some grape tomatoes or chopped tomatoes or whatever you like. And then my dressing, it's a third cup of olive oil, but I did use a little bit less and did more lemon juice. Calls for a third cup of olive oil and 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1 clove of garlic, half teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of coriander, and a pinch of cinnamon. We'll just mix all of that up and you let it chill once it's all mixed so the flavors will marry. I think I'm just gonna eat it because I don't mind. But if you make it up ahead of time, the ingredients really absorb the dressing really well. Here's my finished tabbouleh salad. I did add some more cooked bulgur wheat to it because I kind of like more than what was showing up there. One thing I wanted to mention for anybody who doesn't want to eat wheat products or is gluten-free is that bulgur wheat, this is the dried bulgur wheat, is pretty similar to quinoa. And usually when I make tabbouleh salad, I make it with quinoa and it turns out really great. It absorbs the flavors really well. It's gluten-free, full of nutrients, and is a great option for any of you that want to try something different. Now it's time for dessert. It's a creamy coconut cashew parfait cheesecake deliciousness. So the crust is just walnuts, coconut, and dates pulsed in a food processor or a blender or even a coffee grinder. I actually used a coffee grinder. You just put it in the bottom of a cup or a parfait glass and then you press it all in. Don't need to bake it, it's just a raw crust. So have it all pressed in here. And now we'll make our filling. So we have soaked cashews. I'm making half a recipe. So this is 1 cup of soaked cashews. And you use 1 can of coconut milk, full fat coconut milk. Half a cup of maple syrup. Third cup of melted coconut oil. And lemon juice, 1/4 a cup, so I'm using half of that. 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, and extra vanilla powder if you want, just because more vanilla extract can make it more dark color, so that's optional. And 3 teaspoons of chia seeds. And then we're gonna blend it all up and layer our parfait. Now that it's blended, it's pretty liquidy because it sets as it cools. So we can just pour it into our glasses. I'm just doing 1 for an example. So divide it up however many times you want based on how much you made. And then once this sets in the fridge or freezer, you can use a fruit topping to go over the top, just any fruit thickened with cornstarch. I chose strawberries. The recipe suggests blueberries. You can use mixed berries. You can use peaches, whatever suits your fancy. But once this is chilled, either in the freezer for a short amount of time or in the fridge for a longer time, like overnight, then you can top it with your fruit and enjoy.